All right, so get this. Today, we're going deep on a story.
Oh, yeah.
It's really going to make you think differently about how we get access to and how much we value scientific knowledge.
Okay.
We're talking about Alexandra Elbakyan and Sci-Hub.
Wow.
This platform has really shaken up the
Yeah.
world of scientific publishing.
Big time.
Okay, so imagine a world
Yeah.
where any research paper,
Right.
any scientific breakthrough, it's
Mhm.
just a click away.
Yeah.
Totally free.
Okay.
That's what Sci-Hub has created.
That's amazing.
And because of this, it's sparked this huge global debate
Heard of it.
about whether information should be something you buy
Oh, interesting.
or a fundamental, right?
I see.
So for this deep dive,
Okay.
our guide
Okay.
has this academic paper.
Yeah.
It's called Alexandra Elbakyan and Sci-Hub, Revolutionizing Access to Scientific Knowledge.
All right.
And honestly, it is wild.
It really is. And what I think is so captivating about Sci-Hub is that it's not just about the technology. It's about one person
Right.
who took on like this multi-billion-dollar industry
Wow.
and made everyone start talking about who really owns knowledge.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's start with the core issue here.
Okay.
The high cost of getting scientific knowledge. I think
Yes.
most people know that
Yeah.
scientific research gets published in journals,
Right.
but I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of these journals charge these crazy subscription fees.
Oh.
We're talking
Yeah.
tens of thousands,
Okay.
even hundreds of thousands of dollars every year
Wow.
for universities to be able to access these journals.
It's really important to remember who gets locked out by this system.
Yeah.
You know, researchers in developing countries,
Right.
independent scholars, even students who are trying to learn.
Right.
They just can't afford to access the latest scientific discoveries.
It's a huge barrier.
And this is where Alexandra Elbakyan's story begins.
Yeah, so she was born in Kazakhstan in 1988. And Elbakyan experienced this firsthand.
Wow.
She was a neuroscience student,
Mm-hmm.
and she was constantly frustrated by paywalls,
Oh, yeah, that.
blocking her from
Yeah.
being able to get to the research papers that she needed.
Right.
Can you imagine, like, you're trying to learn and contribute to your field,
Mhm.
and you just hit a wall like that?
It's so frustrating.
Must have been incredibly frustrating for her.
Totally. And, you know, Elbakyan wasn't the type to just accept this.
Right.
Like, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Instead of complaining,
Right.
she decided to use her skills to actually change the system.
That's amazing.
And that's what led her to create Sci-Hub back in 2011.
Wow.
This website that totally changed the game for researchers everywhere.
Okay, so how does Sci-Hub actually work?
Okay.
Does it, like, hack into the journal databases or something?
It's more clever than just a basic hack.
Okay.
Sci-Hub uses a combination of donated credentials,
Oh, wow.
and then it uses automated bots to bypass those paywalls.
Okay.
Think of it like, you know, you have this huge library,
Right.
but if there's a back door,
Got it.
researchers, they just enter the name of the paper they're looking for,
Yeah.
and Sci-Hub just gets it for them.
Wow.
Totally free.
That's incredible. No wonder publishers are freaking out about this.
Right.
But I can also see why researchers, especially the ones without a lot of resources, would think Sci-Hub is like this amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's estimated that Sci-Hub gives access to over 88 million research articles.
That's a huge number.
That's insane. It really shows how big of a problem Sci-Hub is addressing.
It does, and this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
So Sci-Hub's impact,
Yeah.
it's not just about providing free access.
Right.
It started this huge global discussion
Wow.
about open access.
Okay.
This idea that scientific knowledge should be free for everyone.
Right.
Elbakyan argues that when you restrict access to knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
it actually slows down scientific progress,
Yeah.
especially in developing countries.
That makes sense.
And she always brings up the Budapest Open Access Initiative,
Okay.
which says scholarly research should be free and unrestricted online.
I mean, if we want to solve global challenges
Mhm.
like climate change or
Yeah.
pandemics,
Mm.
shouldn't everyone have access to the latest scientific research?
Exactly.
Hard to disagree with that.
But of course, there's another side to this.
Right.
Publishers say
Right.
that Sci-Hub is stealing their intellectual property,
Right.
and it's destroying the financial model that supports scientific publishing.
So it's not so simple.
It's not.
There are good arguments on both sides.
There are.
Let's dig into the backlash against Sci-Hub a little more.
Okay.
The paper talks about a few legal challenges
Uh-huh.
that Sci-Hub has faced, right?
Yes. Big publishers like Elsevier,
Right.
they've sued Elbakyan
Wow.
for copyright infringement.
Okay.
And in 2017,
Uh-huh.
a U.S. court ordered her to pay $15 million in damages.
$15 million. That's a lot.
It is.
So it seems like the fight isn't over.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The paper also mentions
Right.
that people are finding ways to get around these blocks.
Oh, wow.
They're using proxies and VPNs
Really?
to get to Sci-Hub.
So people really want open access.
They do.
Yeah,
Seems like
absolutely.
they feel like the current system isn't working for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. This raises a really important question.
What's that?
Is knowledge a right or a commodity?
Hmm.
Is it something you buy and sell,
Right.
or is it something that everyone should have access to?
Good question.
This is where we get into the really tricky ethical and philosophical questions, and I
Yeah.
want to explore that more.
Okay.
But before we do,
Yeah.
I think we should look closer at Elbakyan's argument.
Okay.
The paper mentions that she's inspired by people like Aaron Swartz,
Right.
this digital activist who fought for open access to information, and tragically he took his own life after he got into legal trouble for downloading academic articles.
That's so sad.
It is. So Elbakyan sees herself as part of this bigger movement, this
Right.
fight for knowledge as a basic human right.
Uh-huh.
She argues that publishers are making money off the work of researchers who
Yeah.
often don't get paid anything for their articles,
Oh, he's...
and peer review, which is a really important part of making sure scientific research is good,
Absolutely.
is mostly done by academics
Right.
for free.
Wow.
So she's saying that the publishers are the ones getting rich
Okay.
off a system built on other people's work.
Interesting.
Makes you think about who really owns scientific knowledge.
It does.
Yeah.
And this question has really big implications.
Yeah.
It challenges who has the power in academia,
Right.
and it makes us rethink how we share knowledge in the digital age.
This is so interesting. It's clear that Sci-Hub has really struck a nerve.
Yes.
And it shows that people are frustrated with the current state of scientific publishing. But where do we go from here?
Good question.
Is open access just a dream, or can we actually make it happen?
That's what we'll talk about in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, cool.
We'll look at how open access models are changing,
Okay.
the challenges and the opportunities,
Uh-huh.
and what the future might hold for a world where knowledge is truly shared.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
So this idea of open access, it's not like Elbakyan just came up with it, right?
No, not at all.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah, the movement for open access has been going on for decades.
Wow.
The Budapest Open Access Initiative,
Right.
which Elbakyan talks about a lot,
Yeah.
was actually written back in 2002.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It lays out all the main ideas about making scientific research free online.
So Sci-Hub is kind of like this more extreme version of that movement.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
It took the ideas and
Wow.
put them into action,
Right.
but in a way that's gotten Elbakyan into some trouble.
Yeah. Definitely Sci-Hub is in this weird gray area legally.
I can imagine.
It depends on this network of people
Okay.
who donate their logins for university libraries and stuff.
So they're sharing their login.
Exactly. Then it uses these automated bots
Got it.
to go through those databases and download articles.
Wow.
That's how it builds up its huge collection.
So it's not like traditional hacking,
Yeah.
but it's definitely bending the rules.
It is. And that brings up a tough question.
Okay, what's that?
Even if you think knowledge should be free,
Yeah.
is it okay to get around paywalls
Right.
and maybe even break copyright laws?
That's a big question.
It is. It makes us think about the different sides.
Yeah.
On one hand,
Sure.
some people say that
Yeah.
restricting access to knowledge is slowing down science,
Uh-huh.
and it's creating inequality between researchers in different parts of the world.
Right. Makes sense.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
publishers say they
Okay.
need to make money,
To stay in business.
yeah, to pay for things like peer review.
Editing and
Yeah.
all the stuff that goes into publishing.
So it's about the ideal of knowledge being free
Yeah.
versus the reality of the system.
Exactly.
But I'm curious,
Yeah.
what do people who support open access say about Sci-Hub stealing from publishers?
Elbakyan has a really interesting response to that.
Okay.
She basically says the publishers are the ones exploiting the system.
Really?
Think about it.
Okay.
Most researchers don't get paid for their articles.
Right. I remember we talked about that.
And peer review,
Uh-huh.
which is super important for making sure the research is good,
Yeah.
is done by academics for free.
Wow. So she's saying the publishers are getting rich off unpaid labor.
Basically. It makes you think about who's really benefiting from how things are now.
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes you question the whole system.
It does. But let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
The paper talks about this growing movement towards different publishing models.
That are trying to make research free while also making sure publishing can still happen.
So they want to find a way to make it work.
Exactly. Can I tell you about some of those?
Yeah, definitely.
One of the big ones is gold open access.
Okay, I've heard of that.
In this model, the authors or their institutions pay a fee.
Okay.
It's often called an article processing charge.
Got it.
And that covers the cost of publishing in an open access journal.
So instead of readers paying,
Yeah.
the researchers pay to have their work shared.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But are there downsides to this model?
There are. One of the big criticisms
Yeah.
is that it can be expensive for researchers,
Especially.
especially the ones who don't have a lot of money.
Right.
So it can create inequality
Yeah.
where researchers from richer places are more likely to get their work published in open access journals.
So it might not solve the problem completely.
Right. Might even make it worse for some people.
Are there other models that try to fix that?
Yeah, there's another one called green open access.
Okay.
In this model, authors put their work in open repositories.
Okay.
These are usually hosted by universities or other institutions.
So it's like this separate system where they
Yeah.
can share their work.
Right, even if it's already been published in a traditional journal.
That's cool. Do publishers ever try to stop that?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Some publishers have rules
Oh, really?
about when you can share your article.
I see.
And there might be delays
Oh, wow.
between when it's published in a journal and when you can put it in an open repository.
So it sounds like open access can be tricky to navigate.
It can be.
Yeah.
There are so many different models
Yeah.
and different levels of support from publishers.
And then there's another layer of complication.
What's that?
With open access becoming more popular, there are these predatory journals popping up.
Yeah.
They take advantage of the system by
Right.
charging authors fees, but not doing proper peer review.
So it seems like every solution has its own problems.
It does. But we should remember the big picture here. Open access in all its forms is a huge change in how we think about knowledge and how we share it.
Absolutely. It challenges the power of publishers.
Right.
And it lets researchers share their work directly with people.
This whole conversation has made me think about the power dynamics here.
Yeah.
Sci-Hub being so disruptive has
Right.
forced everyone to face some uncomfortable truths.
I agree.
Yeah.
It started a debate that we needed to have. And even though Sci-Hub might not be legal,
Yeah, it's definitely moved the conversation forward.
absolutely, it's shown that we need better ways to share knowledge.
Speaking of Elbakyan, what's she doing now?
Right.
The paper said she's facing legal challenges and basically living in secret, so she doesn't get extradited.
She's become this mysterious figure,
Yeah,
a symbol of resistance.
I see.
Even with all the legal pressure and risk,
Yeah.
she's still committed to making knowledge free for everyone.
It's a pretty amusing story when you think about it.
It is.
One person with a laptop
Right.
and a strong belief has been able to shake up this massive industry.
And start a global debate.
It shows how technology can change things
Lovely.
and give people the power to challenge the way things are.
Yeah. And it shows that open access isn't just about academic freedom.
Right.
It's about social justice and global equality.
That's a powerful way to put it. It feels like we're seeing a huge shift in how we think about knowledge,
Right.
how we share it,
Yeah.
and how much we value it.
Totally. And like with any big change,
Yeah.
there will be pushback, challenges, and setbacks.
But it seems like things are moving in the right direction.
They are. The demand for open access is growing,
Yeah.
and the traditional publishing model is having to adapt.
This has been so interesting.
It has.
I've learned so much about something I knew nothing about before.
Me too.
Mm.
It's complicated and it's always changing.
Yeah.
And with something this complex,
Right.
there aren't any easy answers.
But we can keep asking questions.
Absolutely.
Keep pushing for more access to knowledge.
Yeah.
And keep supporting the people who are trying to make things better.
That's a great point. Knowledge is power,
It is.
and everyone should have that power.
Before we move on to the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's take a second to think about what we've learned. So welcome back to our deep dive into the world of open access.
You know, I think it's safe to say that our look at Alexandra Elbakyan and Sci-Hub
Right.
has really made us think about
It has.
the future of scientific knowledge.
It feels like we're at this point
Yeah.
where the old way of doing scientific publishing is
No.
being challenged.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Sci-Hub,
Yeah.
even though it's controversial,
Yeah.
has really pushed for this change.
So where do we go from here?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Can we have open access and also make sure that scientific publishing can still happen?
Can we make it work?
Right. That's what everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah. And it's not easy.
It's not. But there are some things happening
Okay.
that make me think the future might be more open and fair.
Like what? I need some good news.
Okay, well, one thing is
Yeah.
more universities and research places are making open access policies.
Okay.
They're telling their faculty
Right.
to publish in open access journals
Got it.
or put their work in open repositories.
So it's about changing the culture from within.
Exactly.
That's a good sign.
It is. And then there's pressure on governments and funding agencies to require open access for research that they paid for.
I mean, taxpayers should be able to see the results.
Exactly. But what about the publishers themselves? Are they changing too?
Some are more willing than others.
Okay.
But even the big publishers are trying out different open access models.
Interesting.
Some have hybrid options.
Okay, what's that?
Authors can pay.
To make their work open access? But the journal still has its regular subscriptions.
So it's like a slow change.
Yeah, it's not happening overnight.
Right, it's a big system.
It is.
Yeah.
And then there are these new publishing platforms that are coming up outside the traditional journals.
I want to hear more about those.
Okay, so one example is PLOS1.
Okay.
It's a really well-respected open access mega journal.
Mega journal.
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay.
It publishes research from all different areas of science.
Wow.
It focuses on good peer review, but it doesn't care about things like impact factor.
So it's about the quality of the research.
Exactly, not about how famous the journal is.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then there are preprint servers.
Right, like ARFIS.
Yeah.
Researchers can share their work there before it's even been peer-reviewed.
Wow, so it gets out there faster.
It does.
Yeah.
And it lets other scientists give feedback and collaborate.
That's really cool. But what about making sure the research is good?
Right, that's a fair point.
With this more open system, how do we know we can trust the science?
Well, people who support open access say that peer review can actually be better in a more open system.
Okay.
With preprint servers, more experts can give feedback.
It's like crowdsourcing peer review.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But what does Alexandra Elbakyan think?
Right. What about her?
About all this stuff happening with open access?
Well, from what I've read, she's hopeful, but also cautious.
Yeah.
She thinks it's good, but she still thinks we need a bigger change.
To make it truly open.
Yeah.
She says that as long as publishers have all the control, there will always be problems with access.
So for her, Sci-Hub is still necessary.
Yeah, it's a way to force change.
Whether you agree with how she does it or not, she's definitely had a big impact.
A huge impact.
It's amazing to think that one person with a laptop could change a whole industry.
And start a global conversation?
Yes. It shows that even these giant systems can be challenged.
That's right.
And that individuals can make a difference. So as we finish up this deep dive, I feel hopeful, but also uncertain.
I understand.
We don't know what's going to happen with open access.
It's true.
Yeah.
But one thing is clear.
Yeah.
People want open access. And the old way of publishing is going to have to change.
It's been fascinating.
It has.
I've learned so much.
Me too.
It's complex and it's always changing.
Yeah. And there are no easy answers.
That's for sure. But we have to keep asking questions.
Right.
Keep pushing for access to knowledge.
Absolutely.
And keep supporting the people fighting for a better future for science.
Well said. Learning and discovering should be something we all do together.
I agree.
And open access is a big part of making that happen.
So we're going to wrap up our deep dive here.
Okay.
But we hope the conversation continues.
I hope so.
Keep learning.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
And keep exploring.
Because knowledge is power.
And everyone should share in that power.